Advanced Certificate in Senior Primary Education, Social Science 1, Subject Code ACP-SSC11. This is a contact session. I am Ms. Hermina E. Smith. I would like to invite you all and welcome all registered students for the above mentioned course to this presentation. The aim of this presentation is to prepare you all for the upcoming August examinations 2017 and also as a general informative session concerning your registered course. Firstly, the examination preparation. If we can look at that, examination instructions need to be adhered to. Therefore, carefully read your general instructions as well as instructions given at each question or sub-question to clearly understand what is needed to be done and to score good marks. Duration of examinations: 3 hours will be written for each examination. Total marks for the paper will be 130 marks. The examination will consist of general methodology of teaching in social science classrooms. Subject contact questions will be asked. Therefore, you will need to read and study your modules and given study material to gather the necessary knowledge. Content examined in the previous examinations could also be asked during the upcoming examination. Therefore, students need to be prepared holistically, meaning that all content need to be revised upon. From the reference or prescribed books that you can need to prepare yourself for the coming examinations: first, Van Rensburg, C. 2007, that is the Discovery the Past History for Namibia, grade 10. Then secondly, the author being Swigers, A. 2007, it's the New Namibian Geography, grade 10 book. Then number 3, you can also use your study guide, face-to-face sessions of IOL centers. Also, is it good to look at any other relevant text or relevant source that includes on the subject. Now for the general objectives of this course. Number 1, you will need to explain features of the development of Namibian nationalism. We can look at number 2. You need to describe features of the South African colonial administration from 1945 until 1975. That includes all the struggle that Namibia had to go through, all the information that the learners need to know, and that is included in the syllabi. Then number 3, you should explain the role of the church on the road to independence. Number 4, describe the events prior to Namibia becoming a republic and the constitutional protection of human rights. We continue. Also describe the African struggle for independence and economic development. Explain key social, political and economic developments of the world history in the 20th century. Then we go on to describe. You should be able to describe how to read different features of maps and weather data. When it comes to map reading, students need to know the different skills that need to be applied for map reading. Skills include how to read from the map, And if it's not also just the map, any other figure that is presented in front of you. Features on the map are usually included or shown on your references, also known as your map key. So learners, students need to have prior knowledge of what a map key is and how to identify features that you will see on the map. Coming to weather data. Weather data includes many other. There is the instruments that you need to also study. There is where the instruments must be placed. That is now at a weather station. You need to know how each and every one of these instruments works, and so on. Then we go on to the next objective, which is how to describe features of the Namibian ecology. So under the Namibian ecology, what is very much important is that the deterioration of the Namibian environment. So under that, you've got different topics. You can look at deforestation, for instance. You need to know what is the meaning of deforestation, the terminology for deforestation, which is the cutting down of trees without replacing them. So as you know that is the terminology for deforestation, we should also look into why trees are cut down. After we see why trees are cut down, which are having different reasons. People use trees for furniture, for instance. They use it for fire making, to cook food. They use it for timber and so forth. So that is why people are cutting down trees. Now one should now see what are the problems created by this factor when people are cutting down trees. So these problems could be that there is a lack of oxygen, for instance. We are cutting down trees that are creating oxygen that is needed for us as well. And then when we are cutting down trees, we can increase soil erosion, for instance, because the roots of the trees are the ones that are binding the soil, and therefore the soil can be together and erosion can be lessened. So are many other topics. For instance, if you look at desertification, with desertification goes along desertization. So students need to know, for instance, the difference between the two. Which one is the desertification and which part is desertization? One should generally also know what is the definition for desertification. That is when an area becomes more and more like a desert caused by humans. Desertization would say that an area becomes more and more like a desert caused by nature. Then you look at the problems that desertification as well as desertization cause to the environment. You should also look at solutions. How can we overcome desertification or desertization? So you go on in ecology to another problem, which can be pollution. Now pollution being divided into different parts, for instance. You find land pollution, you find noise pollution, you find air pollution, and then water pollution. So learners should be able to identify these type of pollutions in the environment as well. So these pollutions are also contributing to the degradation of the environment. So do we need to see what are the problems that each of them are causing towards the environment. And then if you have decided or seen the problem it is causing to the environment, so can you now look at the solutions to curb this problem. And so you can go on to many other topics under ecology, the Namibian ecology. Let's go on to the next objective. The next objective is the aspects of geomorphology. So what is geomorphology? It is very much needed that we understand what geomorphology is for us to understand what is following then. Under geomorphology, you would find topics like plate tectonics, earthquakes, volcanoes. So plate tectonics, it's the start of what the earth is made up of. Plates, we name the large sections of the earth crust. Then the plate boundaries, which are important because they are the ones which are showing us the movement of specific plates. Then comes now the land features that are created through earthquakes and then volcanoes. So learners or students should just keep on going through your work, through your modules, and then build up on the knowledge under that topic. The next topic is how to describe the aspects of population geography. Under population geography, which seems like a very small topic, it is actually a very wide topic, under which you would first have to look at its distribution, population distribution and density, for instance. So when knowing the population and density, the distribution and density, then students would thereafter know how people come to flock at one area, how people are spread out throughout the country or area, and that will be through migration, which is the movement of people. So will there be other topics also under population geography. The very important part is also the HIV/AIDS and its socio-economic impact on the country. We now can move on to the next objective, which is the regional geography of Namibia. It is good to know the Namibia, our country, how it looks like, and who the neighbors are, what the neighbors are, and our learners, which we will teach, need to also know Namibia and its surroundings. Well, it is needed to know what is the geographical location of Namibia, number one. Then you look at the physical landforms of Namibia, look at all the mountains, all the rivers, and so the learner needs to know the Namibia, our country. Right, now we move on to teaching methodology. All these above mentioned teaching objectives that I was just mentioning before are also created through the way you will give to the learners or you will teach to the learners. So, as a social science teacher, it is important to use the appropriate type of teaching methodology when teaching subjects like geography and history, simply for the better understanding of these subjects by learners. When planning for a lesson, a social science teacher must also use practical or investigative methods to help learners visualize given topics that are not in their physical surroundings. Also, to enhance the different skills learners need to master through these subjects. When I'm using this methodology or way of methodology, I want to emphasize that we have a very vast country with different types of learners that we approach in your class. These learners are coming from different areas in our country, and not all of them necessarily can see all the landforms, for instance, that you are explaining. Therefore, it is good in your class, whether you are using audiovisual or you are using models or whatever type of methodology that you can use in the class, so that the learners can actually see what you are trying to show them or what you are trying to teach them. Successful lessons are usually learner-centered. Therefore, teachers need to know the characteristics of learner-centered teaching and try to find different ways on how to prepare such lessons. Very important. The learner must be totally involved in the lesson so that they can learn themselves and not just by giving them a task to do. And the teacher should always be around so that they can assess the learners through what they are trying to learn. Assessment of learners is also vital. Therefore, regular tests, practical exercises, term end examinations, etc. must be given to learners to know the level of understanding and competence of learners. Teachers must then interpret such tests or examination scores to have a view of learning difficulties learners might experience. Also for the teacher to know how the learners are performing after a given test, after a given lesson, Herewith, I would like to wish you good luck for your upcoming examinations. I thank you.